Okay, so I kind of just graphed over here. So we have our quadratic. Okay, so we have it drop down 4 units. Okay, so then we have our x-intercepts of -2 and +2. Okay, then I drew asymptotes for the reciprocal function. I'm going to make this a little bit better. Okay, so those are my asymptotes for the reciprocal function. Okay, so what do you do now? So let's say we want to graph the reciprocal function. So something easy that you can do is just plug values into the equation. So plug in values into x and then see what you get. Okay, so say I plug in -3, I get +9. -4 is 5, 1/5 is 0.2. I'm going to put it in green. So I get 0.3 and 2. So for instance, again, if I plug in -3 squared minus 4, -3 squared is 9, 9 minus 4 is 5, so you get 1/5 or 0.2. Okay, if I plug in -4, I get 1/12. 1 divided by 12 is 0.08, so something very small. Okay, so I'm just looking on this side here. So that's, what if I plug in, say -2.5, -2.5. So -2.5 squared minus 4. This marker is finished. -2.5 squared, I think, is 6.25. 6.25. 6.25 minus 4 is 1/2.25. And 1 divided by 2.25 is 0.4. Okay, so it starts to get a little bit closer, a little bit higher. Okay, what if I plug in 2.1? Let's see what happens. I get put -2.1. So -2.1 squared is 4.41 minus 4, you get 1/0.41. 1 divided by 0.41 is 2.4. Okay, so over here it's going to go up to 2.4. Okay, so you'll see that on this side, the graph goes like such. Okay, so curves, just like a reciprocal function we've done before, so curves this way. Okay, but we have different, so let's plug in another value now. So what if we plugged in -1? So let's plug in -1 here. So -1 squared minus 4. -1 squared is +1. Minus 4 is -3. So 1 divided by -3 is -0.33. So you're going to have a value around this point here. Okay, well, let's see if I plug in 0. If I plug in 0, I'll get 1/-4, which is -2.5. If I plug in +1, I'll get 0.33 negative. Okay, if I plug in 1.5, let's plug in 1.5. So 1.5 squared, I think, is 2.25. 2.25. -1.75. So 1 divided by 1.75 is -0.6. So -0.6 over here. And then you get the same on the other side. So you'll notice that it's going to look it's kind of a weird graph. So it goes this way, then it goes this way, and then this last part, so after positive 2, it's going to be a mirror image of this one here. So you're going to get a graph that looks like that. Let's bring it closer. Okay, so we have our graph going upwards as such. Okay, that becomes the mirror image on this side. Just plug values in. I won't expect you to plug values into all of them. What the whole idea is this is for you to come up with characteristics or patterns. Okay, and then we have our last part here. Okay. Okay, so let's continue with this. So we have our intercepts, our vertical asymptotes. The positive where it's increasing. So where it's above x-axis was this arm here and this arm here. Okay, so it's above the axis, above the x-axis with on the quadratic this way and this way. You'll also notice that the reciprocal function is above the x-axis here and above the x-axis here. So they're the same. They're both above the x-axis. And then in between -2 and +2, your quadratic is below here, and your reciprocal function is down here as well. So between -2 and +2, you also have them below the x-axis. Okay, now we're going to look at next increasing intervals. So when is it increasing? So let's start with the quadratic. So quadratic is decreasing here for read left to right, and then after this point, it increases. So what's the intervals with the x's? So from x0 to positive infinity. So from x0, you can put this one, to positive infinity. Okay, you could, actually let's put round. Either one's fine. Okay, and then when is the quadratic decreasing? Well, it decreases from -infinity down to 0 on the x's. Okay, so this is -infinity x's to 0. So this goes from -infinity to 0. Okay, for the reciprocal function, it's the opposite. So from -infinity to -2, it is increasing. So from here to here, we have an increasing graph. Okay, so that's the first part. So from -infinity to from -infinity to -2, it increases. And then it also increases at this point here. So it increases from here to here. So from -2 to 0. Okay, so from -2 to 0. Okay, then the reciprocal function decreases. Decreases from this part onwards. So from 0 to -2. Looking at the x values, so from 0 to -2 it decreases. So from 0 to -2, remember this is intervals that are points, and then it decreases this point here. So from from +2, so I assume in +2, from +2 to positive infinity. Okay, you'll notice that these are the opposite. The increasing and decreasing are opposite for reciprocal functions. So the quadratic is decreasing all the way till 0, whereas ours is increasing from -infinity to 0. So from -infinity to 0. After 0, the quadratic is increasing, but after 0 here, your reciprocal is decreasing. Okay, so they're the opposite. Okay, now these are 2 key points that we need to do. So it says, what's the point where y is 1? What's the point where y is 1? Okay, so I'm going to do that on the side. So we want to know what's the point where y is 1. And I'll show you here. Let me get another color. Okay, so we have y equals x squared minus 4. So say, when is it? What's the point when y is 1? So we're going to plug in 1 here. And now we're going to solve for x. So we plug 1 into y. So bring the 4 over, or cancel it out. So plus 4. So we get 5 equals x squared, and square root. And you get an answer, I think it's 2.2. 2.2, good. So 2.2 is your x value, but since we square root it, it's plus or minus 2.2. So the point where y is 1 is 2.2 and 1, and negative 2.2 and 1. Okay? So this is interesting because watch this. At negative, come here closer, negative 2.2 and positive 1, look, that's where the two graphs intersect each other. And then positive 2.2 and 1, imagine they intersect here, they're supposed to intersect here. Okay, so from negative 2.2 and 1 and positive 2.2 and 1 is where the graphs intersect. Okay, also, we want to know where the point is for y equals negative 1. So this one's the same. If you were to substitute 1 into y here, if you were to substitute y, positive 1 here, and solve for x squared, for x, you would get the same points. Okay, now we're going to do it for negative 1. So for negative 1 now, so add 4, still add 4, so we get negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3, square root, and the square root of 3 is 1.7, plus or minus, because we square rooted. So it's going to be 1.7 and negative 1, and negative 1.7 and positive 1. Make sure, it's a very big mistake, usually they put this as their y value. This is your x value, so 1.7 is here. So if we go back to the graph, okay, negative 1, so 1.7 and negative 1. So 1.7 is roughly here, and negative 1. So you can see that the graph intersects here as well. And that one is done. And then here, at negative 1.7 and 1 is negative 1.7 and negative 1. So it should be intersecting there. So on our graph, 1.7 and negative 1 and negative 1.7. Sorry, I meant our chart. Oops. Sorry, this is supposed to be negative 1 for both. Okay, so it's kind of a lot to take in to start, but once you do a few of these, you end up being very good at them. Okay, so what I want you to get out of it is a few things. So you're going to finish off the chart. So you need these key points. You need to know where the intercepts are and the zeros are. So you'll notice that the intercepts of the parent function, is the vertical asymptotes of the reciprocal function. You'll also notice that they're always in the positive together, so above the x-axis together, and below the x-axis together. Okay? They always intersect where y is positive 1 and where y is negative 1. So if I went across here at negative 1, so if I did a line through here, they will intersect where y is negative 1, as well as where y is positive 1. So they will always intersect at those points. And then lastly, when one is increasing, the other one is decreasing. So everything's the same except for the increase and decreases, they're the opposites. Okay, so what I want you guys to do in 5.1, there is a chart here. Okay, so I just finished the chart for this function here, for these two functions. They give you 1, 2, 3, 4 more. So I want you to do the chart for those next 4. Okay, I will post, I had done all of them already. So I will photocopy these and post them online for you guys to see the answers. Okay, so I want you to work that chart. After you finish the chart, you are working on these letters here, page 248, A to M. So it's on the same part. You're just answering these questions A to M. Okay, and then move on to, it's not day 1, day 2, we're doing them together. You go to page 2, I'm going to read that, 254, 1 to 3, 5, 9, 12, A, B, C. Okay, I'll put this online for you guys. It's very important that you get this first lesson. It is kind of confusing. I'll post these, but please, please, please get through them. Okay, I hope you guys all had a great weekend. I'm actually filming this. This is Thursday right now, so I'm planning you guys are going to be watching this on Monday next week, I believe. Yeah, next week on Monday. Okay, take care.